I can fly.
Well, superheroes abound in popular culture. Their archetypes thrill us. They keep us on the edge of our seats as Hollywood spends billions of dollars a year showcasing the forces of good versus evil on the big screen. But what about our everyday heroes? They may not have the Hollywood blockbuster appeal of the Avengers, but their stories still grip us. Today on C-Shift, we take a look back at some of the heroes we've interviewed on Context over the years, those who inspire us, move us, make us weep, and sometimes their stories even shake us to their core. I'm Lorna Dueck, and you're watching C-Shift.
I want to meet you in person, so I can't wait for you to have your transplant, and as soon as you do, you and your mom, we're going to fly you and your mom out here for a show, and I'd love to hang out with you backstage, and we're going to dance together. We are going to dance together, you and me, okay?
Well, Elaine Campbell had to leave her friends and family in Ottawa to move to Toronto with her mom as she waits for new lungs. Elaine joins us now to share her remarkable story. Tell us about idiopathic pulmonary disorder that has struck you.
Well, I found out about it, that it was officially idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis in the fall. That's when I got the diagnosis. But since before that, I just thought it was asthma.
And you collapsed while hiking. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, I was hiking with friends, and I didn't know what was going on because I couldn't keep up with them, so a friend had to carry me. And then that's really when I said, this is not asthma, this is something more than asthma. So I went to see my family doctor, got a chest x-ray done, and it was confirmed that I had a pneumothorax, that's the medical term for collapsed lungs. And then I was admitted for 2 weeks where they did open lung biopsy, a bronchoscopy, just to really get a lung tissue piece of the lung, just so they could give it more of a diagnosis, because they said this is not asthma, because the chest x-ray confirmed it was something more.
It's amazing that your doctor has come here. I'm going to ask him to describe the conditions of your lung. So let's just turn to Dr. Schaff there.
Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is an unusual disease, and the word idiopathic means we don't really know what causes it. And sometimes it suddenly hits young people, suddenly, as Elaine has been afflicted. Other times it shows up sort of slowly over time, and most people are in their 50s or 60s, previously healthy, and get this condition. And today there are drug therapies that can help it a bit, but ultimately the only way to treat it is to replace the lungs or do a lung transplant.
And Elaine, you had just recently a chance for those new lungs. Tell us about getting the call from the hospital.
My mom couldn't wake me up. Elaine, I thought she was just trying to put the oxygen back in because it often falls out during the night, and it happened so quickly. It was an adrenaline rush for sure. My sister was with me, part of the family, so my mom and I went to the hospital and went through the whole process, because you really ultimately don't know till the last minute. They could even be bringing you to the OR, I've heard, and the physicians know if it's not a perfect match. They can say it's not a perfect match. So it came close, but I trust they know what they're doing.
Dr. Schaff, you are the director of the Toronto Lung Transplant Program. Toronto did the first lung transplant in the world. I feel really good for Elaine that you're here and watching this case so closely. What would you say to her after her failed attempt at getting new lungs just yesterday?
Well, you know, it's been a long road in lung transplantation. When we did the first lung transplant in the world in 1983 and a double lung in 86, it was a very high-risk operation. And today we have a 97% success of getting through the surgery at Toronto General Hospital. We do over 100 lung transplants a year. But the problem, as all of you know, is there are not enough donor lungs. And so when there is an organ donor, we go and we work on the lungs and examine them and test them till the last minute to make sure they're okay. And we're also developing techniques to repair lungs, to make them better so that we can use more of them. But unfortunately, sometimes the entire team was up all night trying to get things organized, and it wasn't just right. And so we'll try again next time. But I think there's hope there that, you know, if you've been called once, you're going to be called again. So hopefully we'll get to it.
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. And you're not wasting your time while you've been waiting these months. You decided to target celebrities, and you said, okay, Justin Bieber, Ellen DeGeneres, you need to know why celebrities.
Why? Because they get the attention and they get the word out there fast. They get it out there quick, and they have credible voices, and I know that with the world nowadays, media, people are so attentive to media, social media, with radio, television, tweeting.
Tell us how well it worked, though. Organ donations skyrocketed. Organ donor sign-ups.
Yeah, the registration, the numbers just went up. So it was so encouraging, not just for me, but everybody helping me, because it took a lot of support to get it out there. So it's amazing.
She's a bubbly 20-year-old whose life took an unexpected turn last summer when she was diagnosed with a degenerative lung disease. Now, Elaine Campbell awaits a double lung transplant, which could take up to 2 years. And she's making some noise about it, using her creativity and energy to raise awareness for organ donation, even catching the attention of Justin Bieber and Ellen DeGeneres. Her message, organ donation can save lives.
I am so grateful for every day I have. And, you know, I take these antibiotics, and I take something called anti-rejection medications. And it was easy for me to never forget when I was first going through it with taking these meds that were like way too big, and like 18 in a row, you know, just like full because of the water I was drinking. And now I can just put them all in my hand and take them. And I think it hits me more the further away I get from the transplant, the more I'm able to do and the more grateful I really am. So I don't know if you heard about my whole little, like, I called my lungs gratitude. It's
wow,
like,
tell us about that.
You know, well, just because without having gone through this experience, I wouldn't have gained so much perspective, compassion, and just understanding of what life is all about and what we go through day to day on a daily basis and what other people deal with and how much we take for granted.
And you called these new lungs gratitude?
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, I kind of like, it's like gratitude, attitude with a little grr, you know, because to have a positive attitude helps a lot, with the things you're going through in life. And the grr is just like, you know, you just got to be tenacious and just got to keep going.
Yeah, and you have to sometimes make yourself be thankful, too.
You really do, because it's easy. I mean, this is going to sound so terrible, but when I was going through the experience, I couldn't put my own shoes on, I couldn't get dressed, I needed help showering, all that jazz. So I was saying, man, I'm so grateful for the days that I could tie my shoes. And now I have these slip-ons.
Slip-ons, that's so bad.
Right?
Yeah.
And I still complain about having to tie shoes.
You were baptized this year. It's up on your blog. Tell me what this means and why you posted this.
Well, I'd never been baptized, like when I was baptized at birth and stuff, but I really wanted it to be a personal choice, something that I wanted to do. And it's insane because people are like, oh, you physically went through a transformation, you had a lung transplant. Well, I think in a lot of things that I went through, I was just under the grace of God, and He was really taking care of me, and the support I had was overwhelming. And the attitude I had facing this experience was one that was not of me. It was something that was stronger than I could handle because of things that had happened previously to me needing a double lung transplant, that I think any normal human being would not be able to cope with such a positive attitude. And just, I say that physically I've had a lung transplant, but I've also had a heart transplant in the sense that, you know, my life has been redirected, and I know exactly what I don't know exactly what my purpose is, but just to see how much God loves every one of us, and He can take something broken and make it beautiful.
Here are some of the stories making headlines this week.
Voters turning their outrage into online worldwide trends.
Why healthcare workers kill.
The opioid crisis is a health crisis.
So how do we weed out the noise?
Well, this is an issue our next guest is an expert on.
We have a lineup of religious leaders from the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faith communities.
I'm Lorna Dueck.
And I'm Sheldon Neal.
And I'm Molly Thomas.
And you're watching Context Live. Romeo Dallaire, meanwhile, continues to worry that we are ignoring the core moral issue facing us on the needs of Africa.
We do not believe that all humans are human. We believe, in fact, that some humans are more human than others. We actually believe that some count more. And secondly, we have this sense of being able in the global village to let one end of the village burn while the other end of the village is doing well. And what I mean by that is that we pick and choose who in humanity we want to help.
And helping, he warns, is something we can all take part in by helping aid agencies get their job done.
I strongly recommend people joining them and bringing their intellectual strength and not just their dollars, and the Canadian youth to go out there and get their boots dirty.
Okay.
To sense that.
Okay, I want to ask you about the church. We have some very tragic footage from the Rwandan churches.
Yes.
From the Anglican bishop in Rwanda, where 5,000 people were slaughtered in one of his churches, and he's saying people are still coming to God here for healing. What did you discover about God in the midst of such evil?
Well, I think first of all, before I get to God, I got to go through religion, because that's our structures that we have. And I discovered that in the Rwandan genocide, that a century of Judeo-Christian education and praying and so on didn't last for beings in front of fear for our own persons, for our own families. And so I really questioned the depth of, in fact, the commitment of people to brotherly love and to our Judeo-Christian religions. Secondly, I found both the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church of Rwanda were complicit in the genocide by letting the ethnicities through the government continue to friction amongst each other, even in their churches, in their schools, over the years. And thirdly, I have no qualms at all in the fact that even after living through the genocide that there is a God, because I know there's a devil, I know there's evil. And so what is being interplayed or played out in humanity is good and evil, and God is sort of watching, and it's up to human beings how they see in their conscience, how they'll play out the good and the evil side.
Has your relationship with God changed through what you saw there?
Well, only in the fact that I'm more convinced of a being, because it supported me and assisted me very tangibly there. And so to that avail, it's there, but I, in the same vein, do not turn to God to save me, to save us from evil and things like that. I think that evil and good play out, and that God is the ultimate entity that, in fact, is present.
So with the lessons of failure in Rwanda as our guide, the key now is to tell our governments we don't want to see another genocide in Sudan.
We should be harassing the daylights out of our politicians, who are already very worked in their committees and so on, but harassing them on the remembrance of the citizens who are out there, and to move beyond our immediate needs and our self-interest. And so we should be just submerging them in letters and continuously bringing to their attention that Canada is a lot more than keeping what it's got. Canada is not only working in technology and mastering it and work ethic and believing in human rights, it's got to get beyond its borders and stand up for the responsibilities it has in moving humanity forward.
People want to change the world, and young people especially. And so often we tell young people they're too young, they need to wait. And what We Day shows is that youth are powerful and that they can individually make an impact. And when you collect those impacts together, it can change the world. $45 million these young people have raised for 1,000 different charities, 15 million hours of service. They're, thanks to We365, the app, they're launching challenges to each other to get involved in giving blood and donating supportive causes and running marathons. The actions of these young people, it's incredible, and it just shows they're hungry to have an impact in this world.
This is Sea Shift.
Michael explained to me about Zach's story, and it was inspirational. And so very simply, we had the opportunity to support Jack in getting this story out, and we were privileged to do it.
I thought you should see where all that stuff you collected was going. Some of these folks been here for weeks. Can you believe that? But they are being fed, clothed, taken care of. But people like you, if you hadn't done what you did, it would have been a whole lot worse for them.
It was moments like what you see in the movie, where I see these shelters and what these kids are going through that really inspired me to grow the foundation into what it is today. And to date, we've been able to really do a lot more than we ever thought we could have. We've been able to distribute over 10,000 backpacks with food and personal hygiene, other basic supplies to youth all across the country that are experiencing homelessness, and really all over the world. We've been able to distribute over 62 pallets of school supplies to kids in Title I schools, and we've just been able to take it from, just a little red wagon into what it is today, and it's just been so incredible.
This really generated out of your own unique family situation too. You're not a guy that had a lot to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, we're just, we're an ordinary family facing ordinary problems.
Your dad died young. That's not ordinary.
Well, it's, there have been struggles. As with any family, we've encountered, our own struggles, but we've just been so incredibly lucky to have been able to move beyond that and take those experiences and really use them to inspire and to encourage us to do even more than what we're doing.
Okay, so then this story gets launched into competition, and Michael, I want to bring you in here because you were running this philanthropy project on behalf of the Templeton Foundation, and the competition for scripts is massive. Yes. You had 4 story editors screening 6,000 leads for a film on generosity, like this kid.
Right.
You took those 6,000 leads, whittled it down to 300. Why did Zach make it?
When we got down to 300, I told my team, now we have to boil it down to 1. We want to invest our resources and our time to make one movie based on a true story of generosity. And we all unanimously voted that the story of the Little Red Wagon Foundation and Zach was the most inspiring by far.
What do you enjoy most about giving?
I guess the feeling that you get when you know that you've made a difference in someone's life, especially a kid. I mean, we've been able to do so many different projects, but my favorite ones are always where we get to directly, interact with the kids. We've done a lot of holiday parties, and because we always try and do fun things for the kids. And I remember this one time we were hosting a holiday party for a group of kids in a domestic violence shelter. And this one boy got a soccer ball. And when he opened it up, his face just lit up, and he was just so thrilled for something as simple as a soccer ball, and he was just so excited. And it's moments like that that I love about doing what I do, and just kind of encourage me to keep going, and it's been incredible.
Here are some of the stories making headlines this week.
Voters turning their outrage into online worldwide trends.
Why healthcare workers kill.
The opioid crisis is a health crisis.
So how do we weed out the noise?
Well, this is an issue our next guest is an expert on.
We have a lineup of religious leaders from the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faith communities.
I'm Lorna Dueck.
And I'm Sheldon Neal.
And I'm Molly Thomas.
And you're watching Context Live.
PureFlix.com is now available in Canada. Sign up today for your free 1-month trial and begin streaming over 3,500 titles.
It's from independent films to movies and short series.
Kids shows. Sign up for a free month. Give it a good try.
Watch your favorite content anywhere, anytime, like PureFlix original hit series Encounter. Enjoy the latest and best in faith and family entertainment, available to you at the click of a button. Visit PureFlix.com and sign up for your free trial today. Brought to you by Crossroads.
Today we look at an event that changed the history of the world, the abolition of slavery. We'll focus on a man known as the hero of humanity, William Wilberforce. We'll find out why today's political leaders are being exposed to a new movie that celebrates how Wilberforce used his parliamentary influence to end slavery. The movie is called Amazing Grace, named for the famous old hymn written by a repentant slave trader, John Newton.
What do you want with the old preacher?
I'm here to seek your advice.
Are you contemplating a life of solitude? People like you too much. Besides, Wilbur, you have work to do.
But now The slave trade has 300 MPs in its pocket. It would be just you against them.
If we were to outlaw the trade tomorrow, this would bring financial disaster.
His enemy is my enemy.
Wilberforce is a rebel.
No matter how loud you shout, you will not drown out the voice of the people!
People!
Dr. Bob Belts is the associate producer of that movie, Amazing Grace, and he recently revised the book Real Christianity, the classic work of William Wilberforce. Producer Bob Belts joins us from Denver, Colorado. Hello, Dr. Belts.
Hi, Lorna. It's good to be with you.
Tell us what you hope will be the outcome of bringing this kind of faith worldview on such a vital social issue to the silver screen.
Well, I think we hope for a number of outcomes. At a very primary level, we hope that we really provide an encouraging and uplifting couple hours of entertainment. That's probably at a very basic level. But we feel like this is a film that tells a story that needs to be told. Particularly, I think, in the United States, there's very few people that understand the role that Wilberforce played, not only in the abolition movement in England, but that how his work was such a motivation and encouragement to those that were fighting that same battle here in the States. So we hope it raises awareness of Wilberforce, but in even a next step beyond that is that we're using the film as a way to create awareness for the fact that slavery is still an issue today in the world, and we're trying to motivate people to not only become aware of that, but to take action. So we're hoping we can almost replicate by using the film and the groups that are working in these areas something of what Wilberforce did himself 200 years ago.
What do you mean by cultural Christian?
Well, Wilberforce was dealing with a situation 200 years ago in England that I think is, in many ways, is very parallel to what we're dealing with in America today, and probably other parts of the world. But since this is, my fish tank, I'll talk a little bit about it. And that is that when he was fighting the battle for the abolition movement, he couldn't get the Anglican Church to get behind him in that. Although there were people of faith that were intimately involved in this, they tended to be people like John Newton, who had a very profound influence on Wilberforce's life from a child, men like John Wesley. Actually, Wesley's last letter before he died was to Wilberforce, encouraging him in his fight for abolition. But they were these people that had come out of the church and were calling the church to accountability and calling people to a deeper commitment to Christ instead of just sort of an institutional Christianity, not unlike I think some in our country, where at that time it was sort of, if you're born in England and you're a member of the Church of England, certainly you must be a Christian, and yet the culture wasn't really living in a way, the church wasn't responding in a way that Wilberforce saw to be consistent with what the Bible taught it meant to really be a believer. And he was a guy, by the way, that had come out of a life of nominal Anglican faith. He'd had an experience as a young child under Newton's influence that then he sort of lost as he grew older and went to college. And so he had a real return to a deep faith in Christ that informed everything that he did. So by 1797, when he's writing this book, he has just spent 10 years fighting for the abolition of the slave trade, and he can't get the church off center to help. And so he writes this book, and it shook England. It was a significant book. And by the way, the update is titled Real Christianity. Wilberforce's title was A Practical View of the Prevailing Religious System Among Professed Christians in the Higher and Middle Classes in this Country Compared to Real Christianity. So I shortened the title a little bit to make it a little easier.
This is C Shift. On November 30th, 1984, Candace Dirksen was only 13 years old and she never returned from school. Candace's body was found 6 weeks later, tied up and frozen on the dirt floor of a storage shed only 500 meters from her home. The case remained a mystery for 23 years until DNA evidence convicted a man who was sentenced to life with no parole for 25 years. Wilma and Cliff Dirksen thought they finally had a sense of closure. But in spring 2015, the Supreme Court of Canada threw out the conviction, forcing the Dirksens to face the reality that a new trial would be needed. Joining me now from Winnipeg is Wilma Dirksen. Wilma, a second trial for you to have to go through after the Supreme Court threw out the first one. How devastating is that for you and your family?
Well, it is devastating because we had hoped that it was closed, and you know, you think of the money, you think of the time, and just to go through it again just seems such a waste.
So the courts still have not answered your need for justice. How have you coped with that?
Well, I think we have coped with it as we did in the beginning, realizing that there is no promise of justice, and we never waited for it for 23 years. And in fact, we came to live quite well without it. And so we have gone back to that, knowing that there is no perfect justice, never will be. And so we look for the truth that justice can bring us, but more or less continue to focus on our lives rather than justice.
So how do you do that? How do you focus on living when there's such a great loss and injustice?
You know, that's really tough. You would think that it would be simple, or maybe you know how tough it would be, but it is an ongoing struggle to look away from something that just draws our attention. It's just, justice is so needed, so promising, so liberating to think that we could have justice, that we would know everything and things would be set straight. So it's a constant struggle to say, you know, that's not important. I'm going to give it what the attention it needs, but I am going to continue my life as if I will never know.
And did your faith in God help with that fight?
Yes, definitely. I think that there is a promise, vengeance is mine, I will repay, in the Bible. And we see throughout the Bible stories how God really does look after the justice issues, and he takes forever. I mean, when we look at, you know, the walk through the wilderness, when we look at Joseph's life, when we look at all of the events, justice doesn't come easily, and it's not quick. Usually it's not quick. It can be. But it is best left in God's hands because it is so complicated. I don't know if we can do it well. And from what I've seen, we don't seem to get it right most of the time. It's really a complicated process to know who is guilty and who isn't, and how we right a wrong.
So what is your advice for Canadians as we wrestle with courts under repair?
Well, I guess I'm disappointed that there is such a decision that it needs to happen so quickly. I think justice takes time. That's part of the nature of justice. And the fact that it took 32 years for us to even get to this point seems like a lot of time wasted. But we've been doing a lot of learning. There's been a lot of growth and understanding that has happened during that time. So I think that's unfortunate. But on the other hand, I know that it's more efficient and more vital to do it quickly. I think the research is there that offenders need to wait quickly after that they have done wrong. So I can see the importance of that. But I think the chaos is something that victims will need to struggle with. I know that, and especially in injustices where the death of the child or even the murder of the child was almost easier to accept than the ongoing processes of justice.
Oh, Wilma, thank you for giving us such a clear reality check of great loss. Wilma, I want to say thank you for your new book, Letting Go, and where you outline the 15 different ways you've been working on the way of letting go of this. You taught us deeply with that new book. And thank you for staying public with your family's story and the loss of Candace. Thank you for watching C Shift. I'm Lorna Dueck.